16 minutes before the hour now, the White House taking a stand against bullying. The Obama administration today announced that schools could lose federal funding if they don't stop the harassment. This as lawmakers in New Jersey want some of the toughest anti-bullying laws in the nation following the suicide of a Rutgers University freshman last month. You'll remember 18-year-old Tyler Clementi jumped off the George Washington Bridge between Jersey and New York after investigators say his roommate and another student set up a webcam and secretly, webcast the images of him live, reportedly, actually I think it was making out with another guy. Let's get to our legal panel. Fox News legal analyst, former prosecutor himself, Arthur Aidala, and the criminal defense attorney, Keith Sullivan. Keith, is there a limit? I mean, this New Jersey law, and we'll get into the details of it, but can you over-prevent? Is there a point where you reach a point of diminishing returns?
In this scenario, Shep, we are facing an absolute epidemic across the country. And for once, there's a piece of knee-jerk reactionary legislation that I actually agree with. And what they're doing in New Jersey is saying, set up a policy, set up a committee, set up a director, have a place for these kids to go. That's all. They're not criminalizing the conduct. And this is a bipartisan bill, which is, if you're familiar with Jersey politics, almost unheard of. So it's certainly going to be signed by the governor.
What you're doing, Shep, though,
it would require anti-bullying programs in all K through 12 classes and language in college codes of conduct to address bullying. So they're hitting you from kindergarten all the way through college.
They're basically legislating common sense. I mean, that what happened at Rutgers was an absolute tragedy. Everybody knows that. And this is what's the reaction. And it's commonsensical about what we should be doing. The rule of thumb for the legislature is you should never create a law that's not going to be enforced. And what the Obama administration is proposing is that if a school has repeated bullying episodes, the federal government is going to pull their support from that school. Do you really ever see that happening? Do you really ever see somebody, a school that has two kids who do something very stupid and they bully someone, they're going to pull the federal funding because two kids are jerks, the whole rest of the school is going to be punished? It doesn't make sense. It's not logical. The desire for them to do something about this is there, but the execution is terribly flawed.
Let's go back to the Rutgers student. You can make the argument, and in fact the argument is being made, that this roommate and friend of his, female friend down the hall, who set up the webcam and watched him have this makeout session with this guy, wasn't so much anti the process of one guy making out with another guy. It was just more, I caught you. He's doing it again. Yay. He didn't mean anything by it. It's an argument that you can make. I'm not saying that's the case.
Sure, but what New Jersey is doing is they're putting students on notice that this behavior is intolerable and there are ramifications for your actions. It's no different than the News Corporation or every other corporation in America that has a policy on sexual harassment. You become an employee, you're aware of it, you put a notice of it, and that's it. And that's what they're doing in New Jersey.
I remember Coach Gunn, and I always bring up Tommy Gunn, but the headmaster at the Marshall Academy back in the day, and he would stand in the hall with the Board of Education. And if some people got caught doing some bullying, you'd get 3 licks to the rump. And it worked. It hurt like hell.
That might not be a bad way to go back.
You're not allowed to hit kids anymore, even on the butt, I guess. But, man, it was very effective, if I remember.
And, Shep, I grew up in the same environment.
Poly prep.
And my dad would go in and tell the teachers on the first day of school, it's my position that if Arthur's out of line, he could get his butt warmed. And you're his parent when I'm not around, and you could do the same thing. Now people get arrested.
So maybe we need this law. Maybe New Jersey's onto something, given the climate change that has happened just in the short 20 years that you and I have been living.
Okay, keep going.
New Jersey is getting ahead of the curve. With technology, the bullying that Arthur was subjected to, unfortunately, as a young guy, is very different than what's going on today. You have Facebook, Twitter.
Yeah, it's the technology. I was called Bucky the Beaver because my buck
and he's a
teeth.
big guy. He couldn't handle himself.
I was called Artie the Duck because I walk funny.
You were the lead singer in a band. You're the most successful defense lawyer in New York City right now. So shut your trap.
I'm talking about when I was 13.
Okay, how did it work out for you, big dog?
You're right. It worked great. But Keith does make a point.
Mr. Brioni suit.
Keith makes a great point. There was no Facebook. There was no Twitter. There was none of this stuff. It was just getting your name written on in the bathroom wall, so to speak. So something needs to be done, Shep, but it needs to be well thought out. And what the Obama administration with this federal law is saying, if your school has a problem with bullying, we're going to pull the federal funding. That's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous.
Baldy, tough guy. Thank you both. Good
Thanks,
to see
Shep.
you. All right. Well, we have new Fox News polls out today. Have you seen